Yo, what's up? It's me, Tim Keys, and I want to talk about that Ableton 12 update. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, Ableton 12 is supposed to be coming out sometime the top of next year, 2024, and you know that seems to be right within the range of their 3-year update cycle. The last Ableton came out top of the year, 2021. So, they're staying on schedule with how they do their upgrades. I have to say, this particular upgrade or update seems to put a lot of emphasis on how, we generate our MIDI and, do things within the sequencer. I don't think Ableton has a bad sequencer, but Ableton's strong suit is primarily how it works with audio. In my opinion, Ableton has some of the best audio manipulation tools, out of all the DAWs. They do a really good job with the time stretch, a really good job with, lining things up, time warp, time stretch. Like they do that very well. The only few DAWs I can think of that could compete with Ableton in that respect, in my humble opinion, is something like a Bitwig. They also can, take your audio files and match the tempo up to your sequencer, or vice versa, depending on if you're running things in the simpler or sampler, depending on the DAW you're using. Bitwig also does a good job. MPC, I haven't really messed with MPC software, the new stuff for chopping up samples, but I imagine it does a lot of things fairly well. Serato Studio, I mean, that does pretty good in terms of audio manipulation. It does very well. But Ableton, as long as it's been around, its strong suit is really in audio manipulation. And so seems like this new update is trying to do some things to counterbalance that. And so now, they put a lot more emphasis on how to generate chords, things of that nature. They got the stay in key feature with this new update, which is, if you're somebody that struggles with music theory, or music theory is just not your thing, then this could be a really good, useful tool for you. And, if you're someone that you don't necessarily work primarily with audio, but you like to, generate different sounds or whatnot and different chord progressions, and you want to try out different things, a lot of this stuff will be right up your alley, with more ways to generate different MIDI clips, transform the MIDI, come up with different rhythms and so forth. Like, that's all good. You can also now you could take the MIDI and split it up in the sequencer, so you could draw one note and then you could split that note into 2, 3, or several different parts, and that's going to allow for a faster workflow. They are also giving you more ways to modulate your sounds with different LFOs and shapers and envelopes, with stuff that's coming in the Max for Live edition. So I think that's cool. Here they're talking about giving you a new synth, which is Meld. Meld has 2 oscillators. You would click on the waveform or the sound generating deal and whatnot, pick the one that you want, shape it in the envelopes, use the filters, and get your sound. And you have more filters to work with. Not filters, pardon me. You have a modulation matrix that you can work with to help you make your sounds. And again, I think that's all. I think it's cool. I think, for what they advertise, a lot of stuff is more geared towards the EDM space. That's okay. It just means that depending on your taste, you're gonna have to do more programming. They got Roar for an effect, which gives you distortion, coloring, and saturation, and different ways of working that out, which, another effect is nice. And depending on what you're using and what you have, it could be useful to you. The new granular synth, Granulator 3, they're adding that to the new Ableton as well. I think that's going to come in the Suite edition. I think all of these instruments are going to be included in the Suite edition. So if you have like intro or a standard, you might have to buy those separately. The Granulator 2 was out. It was available for free, if you use Ableton Suite, you can download it. It's nice that they add this as a stock instrument. I am kind of bummed that you still have to have version 3 in order to get this device. Then they give you some more, samples from, different sound sources that you can use. They have their performance pack and so forth. So if you're someone who performs live, they give you some additional tools with, what's included in the Max for Live. So that could be useful. I don't know. I think these are welcome additions in my opinion. They also added some new stuff with the mixer. Now you can see the mixer on the screen, and I know a lot of people are excited about that. You kind of take it for granted if you're somebody that has a different DAW that kind of gives you that feature. But if you're an Ableton user, I can see how this is useful to you. One thing, or a couple things in this side of the search engine that's been improved. I know that will be welcome for a lot of users just because now you get to search with the tags or whatnot. And I know a couple of people personally that really advocated for this feature, some of which were like part of Ableton's, research team or whatnot, that would go and look at other DAWs and, just things that they felt like the DAW was missing, and they would say, hey, like, add this feature to it. So I know those people got to be excited about this now because they have it in the DAW. You also get the sound similarity search, which I would be curious as to how that actually works in real time. Like once the DAW comes out, if there are any bugs, glitches or whatnot. But it's a cool concept. And so I think, again, it'll be a welcome addition. Yes, there are some plugins that will do some of this stuff, but the fact that you have it included in your DAW, I think that's going to make things a lot easier. Going and looking at all of the, all the additional stuff that you get, I'll just skip right to it. One thing I noticed looking at this is with the new update, when it comes to like the instruments that you're going to get, for standard users, it seems like they've included, or they will be including, the analog, collision, electric, and tension, synthesizers that, come from Applied Acoustic Samples or Applied Acoustic Sounds. I think that's what the company's called. They do the physical modeling stuff. And so a lot of these synths that are a part of the modeling package for Suite users are now finally being added to the standard. And I think that was one of the things, like, points of critique for Ableton is that, outside of like the Suite edition, if you wanted stock sounds, you really didn't have much to work with that wasn't sample based. So, and they have a great collection of samples that you can download depending on the version of Ableton you're using. But, if you wanted to use like the wavetable, any of this stuff right here, the FM synth, you either had to buy it separately or buy the Suite edition, which costs a lot more. They give you a lot, but it just costs more to like get into it, and paying, $450 to $500 versus paying almost $800. I mean, $800 is $800. So the fact that, now they're giving you these synths for, not for free, but they're part of the standard package. I'm pretty sure they looked at Bitwig in particular, maybe even Reason and FL Studio, and said, look, these other DAWs for their price point give you all of these features, and what are we giving our customers? So we got to give them something. So I think this was a smart move from Ableton. And then Meld, as I said earlier, these new plugins, unfortunately, they'll be exclusive to, the Suite edition. Same thing with the effects, they'll be exclusive to the Suite edition. And then after that, like all of your, your sounds or whatnot, if you want some extra stuff, that's nice. They're including the orchestral strings, the Session Drums, Club Studio, Synth Essentials. A lot of these packs that came stock to the suite users are now available for, your standard users. Again, I think that's a welcome addition, and just adding more content for those users. I think it's a move in the right direction. My hot take on it: who is this for? Who is this for? Or is it worth it? I think, again, that's something only you can decide. Is it worth it? It's going to depend on what your needs are, and what you already have in your possession. I think the MIDI generators will be good for most people that primarily use live. And if you don't have other plugins like a scaler or Instacord or Instascale or Instacomposer, those type of plugins, then this is nice to have something that will like generate melodies and stuff for you without you having to reach for all of these different tools. I think that's a good thing. On the other hand, I think if you're someone if you use multiple DAWs, then this may be a harder sell. Like Reason has plenty of MIDI generating tools that you can use to generate ideas. So if you already had the subscription to Reason and you were using Ableton, you might not find the update as appealing. If you're using something like Bitwig, you might not find the update as appealing because Bitwig has all of their own stock synths, and then they have the grid. FL Studio, a lot of the MIDI manipulation tools that are coming to Ableton in this new update, a lot of users from the FL Studio side have said like, hey, well, we already got these type of tools in FL Studio, so we don't it's not as cool to us. But again, I think if you're just using Ableton, this would be a welcome addition. I think the update is a good step in the right direction. And Ableton does do a lot. I know the big point of contention seems to be either the AI mastering or what's that junk? I don't mean in the bad way, but I can't think of it right now. The stem splitting feature. I think, there's lalal.ai that will split your stems for you. You pay a small fee. There's some free plugins out there that I will discuss. There's also some paid programs out there like RipX, which I've already covered on this channel, that will take your stems and split them up. I think Serato Sample, the VST, I think that does it now too. So, I mean, if you have those VSTs and you're using something like Ableton or any other DAW that doesn't have that feature, I don't think not having it in the DAW itself should make or break your decision about buying the DAW. But then again, depending on, who you are and what version of Ableton you're using, that update could be a little bit pricey. They are giving a 20% off deal for right now. So, keep that in mind. But if you miss out on the sale, then you just got to wait until the next one. And so, I'll keep it positive. I think it's good for what it is. I think it's a nice step in the right direction in terms of some of the other features that, the comparisons or whatnot. I don't find them to be as big of a deal, but that's just my personal taste. But only you can decide if it's worth it for you. I would suggest waiting until the update comes out and then testing it for 90 days. And then, go from there. All right, I'm going to get off of here because I'm exhausted. It's been a rough day. So I appreciate you watching this channel. Let me know what you think about with the new Ableton in the chat, in the comment section below. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you. I'm Tim Keys. I'm out. Peace.